Daniel Ricciardo is likely to race in 2024, according to recent reports that have been fueled by his statements during the Australian GP. This is something that was heavily expected by every fan out there, and although the options are still very blurry for the honeybadger, it seems like there are a couple of teams that will take him if given the chance. And one of these teams is Red Bull, now that Perez has started to show teeth for the championship fight. And is there a real chance that Ricciardo will replace Perez after the flame has been reignited by Horner and the Aussie himself? 2023 is likely to go in Red Bull's favour, as the RB19 turned out to be the most dominant car that the sport has ever seen so far. This has been said by Hamilton and Russell, with the latter believing that Red Bull is even hiding on some laps in order to prevent the FIA from intervening in this matter and making racing closer and more anticipated. However, when one team emerges as a complete favourite compared to everyone else, something that may result in destroyed relationships between the drivers is a likely outcome. Such was the case with Mercedes in 2016. With Perez winning the Saudi GP and Verstappen not being able to catch up to him in 25 laps, we were given an interesting perspective about Perez actually standing up for himself and giving Verstappen a run for his money. Now, why are we talking about this in a video that's supposed to be about Ricciardo returning to Formula 1? Because what Perez is currently doing could open the door to the honeybadger as the second driver in Red Bull. Although we're very pleased to see Perez standing up for himself and providing an interesting development of the season, this may not turn out very well for the Mexican driver in the long term. For example, we've seen that when Perez started to express his personal beliefs on Verstappen after the Brazilian GP in 2022, the team went on to sign Ricciardo as a reserve driver just to show the second driver is easily replaceable in Red Bull. And from where Ricciardo currently stands, it would be a massive improvement for him to jump from the reserve driver's seat straight into the starting role next to Verstappen. If there is one thing that Red Bull hates at this point, it's Verstappen being challenged by his teammate. And given the fact that Perez is statistically the best teammate that Verstappen has ever had, it's a knife with two blades for the Austrian team at this point. That's why Ricciardo could hope that there is a high chance Perez won't be the starting driver in the upcoming period, and Ricciardo also gave a huge hint that he could be back in the 2024 season. While doing an interview with Ted Kravitz from Sky F1, he was told how good he looks in Red Bull colours and how much the crowd cheered whenever he appeared on the small screens. However, everyone would love to see him back in an F1 car, to which Ricciardo replied, "Hey Ted, quali was exciting. I look in these colours though, it's alright. I can do it for a year, it's all good, it's not forever." This was the end of the conversation, as Ricciardo's statement left everyone baffled and full of hope that he could be the next big thing in 2024. If Hülkenberg could have scored solid points after having a break of 3 years, then we're sure that Ricciardo's 2 bad years in McLaren and 1 year off as a reserve driver won't hurt his chances severely when it comes to joining a new team. And Horner also has a high opinion of his reserve driver, as right now Ricciardo's primary role is to promote the brand and the team by being its face. That's what he did in Australia, and that's what he'll do at the limited number of events he'll visit with the F1 caravan. But it seems like these are not his long-term plans, with this being said when he signed the contract, and with this being confirmed during the interview with Sky F1. When talking about Ricciardo and how he was handed to them from McLaren, Horner added, "We had to feed him up. I don't know what you guys did to him. He looks skinny. He looks healthier now. He's training hard and ready to go, given a chance. He's 10 minutes away from being ready. He's in good shape. He's kept fit and well." To be fair, the statement was primarily about Ricciardo jumping in to replace either one of Verstappen and Perez if the opportunity pops up. But if it doesn't, and if Perez continues to fight the battle he has started to fight in the beginning of the 2023 season, it's very evident that Ricciardo could replace him at any given point in either late 2023 or the beginning of 2024. We were very close to seeing Ricciardo race an Alpine in 2023. However, when Gasly became available, it was more than evident that they weren't ready to forgive Ricciardo for the sudden abandonment that he'd done upon them in 2020. Plus, Gasly is younger and has more potential to develop into a race winner, given how good he was during his AlphaTauri days in 2020 and 2021, when the car was a lot more competitive than in 2022. On the other hand, there are a couple of teams that were related to Ricciardo, such as Mercedes, but now that the Aussie has signed the role of a reserve driver in Red Bull, it's evident the Brackley-based squad won't see any future with the honeybadger now that there are much hotter prospects available from 2025 onward, such as Leclerc and Norris. This is the time when Hamilton is supposed to retire, and if something strange happens before that, and the 7-time world champion decides to end his tenure in F1 prematurely, then Ricciardo could be called to fill up the place before Mercedes goes all in on a more attractive prospect. But unlike Mercedes, Haas is ready to give Ricciardo another shot after he ghosted them back in 2022. Remember that Steiner said that the honeybadger just didn't seem interested enough to join them, as Ricciardo said that if he raced in 2023, it would be with a competitive team. This is one of the reasons why he signed the reserve driver contract with Red Bull, but if Perez decides to calm all things with Red Bull and understand that this is practically the best team that he can challenge Verstappen with or win any races in his career with, then the door would be shut for the Aussie. And with Haas signing Hülkenberg before the beginning of the 2023 season, it's evident that the American team is changing through drivers to see what would be the best fit for them in the long term. One thing is for sure, Haas isn't very keen on committing long term to young or rookie drivers, as Steiner was scrutinized for the way he treated the son of the 7-time world champion while he was still with them. In this part, Ricciardo fulfills the criteria of being a competitive candidate for Haas, but is the team still interested in him if any of the drivers do not perform well in 2023? According to Steiner, yes they are. It's a little bit too early to speak about a driver change already for next year. So let's see how we're doing with these drivers, Magnussen and Hülkenberg, and for sure at some point maybe I speak with him, but I cannot promise anything because if our two guys do a good job, I think where I stand with it, but for sure, Danny is. Everybody is wanting to speak with Danny after a year off. Maybe he knows again what he wants to do, and he'll be interesting for everybody in Formula 1. But at the moment, I have a new driver this year, Hülkenberg, that has done only 2 races, so I need to give him a little bit of a chance. One thing is for sure, Ricciardo is eyeing a return to the sport in 2024, and time will tell whether the year off at Red Bull and the 2 bad years at McLaren have taken their toll on his ability to drive a car. Quite frankly, if you're Daniel Ricciardo, you do not get to lose all of your knowledge like that, and we've seen it with Hülkenberg, who hasn't been nearly on the level of Ricciardo but was still able to score 6 points during the Australian GP. Sure, it took 8 cars to retire, but at the end of the day, he was able to survive all of that carnage, which is sometimes all it takes for you to end in the points finish. So with this in mind, what do you think about Ricciardo returning to Formula 1? Do you think that there is a legitimate chance that he'll replace Perez if the Mexican reignites the fight between him and Verstappen like he did in 2022? Or do you think that he has a better chance to join a low-performing team like Haas if he wants to continue racing in 2024? Let us know in the comments down below.